So what's been going on?
Oh man, yeah. In reality, not a whole lot, but
Well, I mean, you're a publisher now.
yeah, that's why I say in reality, not a whole. It's like I have a whole lot of things in the pipeline. Actually, yeah. Well, let's go through all the stuff that I've done and what has happened and where we're at now. Actually, first, I want to publicly on the channel congratulate you on 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
I
I know that
appreciate
that's
it.
sort of a vanity thing, or to me, that's extremely impressive. And it shows, because I watched you go from 30,000 basically up to where you're at now in a very short period of time, in my opinion. And I watched you put out consistently quality content. You are operating a studio, a channel, a niche thing. Uh, I don't know. Have a lot of respect for what you've done, and it's just cool to see it actually come to fruition in a way that you have solid hardcore fans that do watch everything you do. You're just got to push them into the comic world.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm thinking about in the next month, I'm thinking about offering The Demon Inside and Edie as a trade paperback on a Kickstarter. Thinking about doing a flip book. I might even offer the first 6 pages in the center of it of my next project, Children Under the House. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm planning it because Children of the House is a property that's on my YouTube channel, and that's one of my bigger projects. One of my definitely, if I had to say, one of the more beloved projects, probably second to Tangivirus, and I decided to adapt that story into a comic book.
And you had already had it as a book on Amazon, right?
Yeah, but the book is pretty much the YouTube video made into a book. Like it's the
Okay, yeah.
lines. So it's like transcripted from what I did in the little movie, and then I use the drawings as basically, the backdrop of it. So it's basically almost like a comic book, but it's children's drawings. So this is different. What I'm doing this time out with Children Under the House is it's a completely different spin on the story. So the original project is from Dr. Lou's perspective, which is a psychiatrist. This flips that. This is from the parents, from the kids, from in the house point of view. Yeah, those characters are everybody's in it, but it's a different perspective on the same story.
Okay. I think I get it. And for those that haven't watched what you do, it's a unique style of storytelling that's essentially that is coined analog horror. But in this exact example, it's almost like you're watching found footage from as if they're recordings and drawings and stuff from uh patients, I guess would be the word, or like
Yeah.
clients of these psychiatrists and doctors and families and whatever. And it's as if you're almost like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the way it was originally written. You're solving this story by reading the content that's associated with the characters that are involved in the story. Although it's fictional, it's made to look as if you're reading actual stuff or listening to actual audio and video recordings that came from real life. Um,
Yeah, exactly. So it's like two doctors were passing VHS tapes between each other while they were making a book. This, I've flipped that on its head. So we start earlier in the story in the comic book. We see where the family moves in. We see we see more of the relationship with the parents. We see how she loses her voice. Jess's character loses her voice. Then they end up going to see the doctor. But we see all the things that was written about or drawn in those pictures. It actually now, so whereas that was more analog horror, this is more Stephen King, is the way. I would describe the next graphic novel. So, I mean, we'll see. It's a different spin on the project. I'm just my goal, as I think I've mentioned this to you probably in the very first time you and I have ever met. I'm trying to use Vintage 8 as a way to explore properties. What do people like? Take that at its most simplest level. And then if it's something that resonates with people, see if it's life in other venues like comic books, bigger movies, found footage, etc. But yeah, that was kind of the idea. It's just to give a chance to explore different venues. Because like at the end of the day, all Hollywood and it looks like comic books now, they want to see an existing property with some success before they invest in it. And it seems like that's with anything, like anything now.
Yeah. And in fact, I just talked to his name is Bob DeRosa. He's like an active screenwriter out in LA. He is probably most famous for writing the movie Killers, which starred Ashton Kutcher and Katherine Heigl, and it came out, I want to
Oh.
say in like 2006 or something like that. And I think at the time, and he kind of tells his whole story, it went up in tiers of like a bigger level of production, and he ended up like banking a lot on it, like
Mm-hmm.
in the millions. And but since then, he's talked about the 20 years after that, how much the industry has changed and what things are like now, and how just like you're saying, he comments on how the nowadays like that there was a middle tier of studios like Lionsgate that produced movies that were like 20 to 50 million dollars, and a lot of stuff that we know of. Some of the best movies we know of, they all came from that level of studio. Not necessarily just Lionsgate, but those levels. Even like Miramax, like they weren't big budget. They weren't 100 plus, but they weren't micro budget and under five. They were just like right in the middle, um, and that was like the bread and butter of like everybody in the industry as far as writing good movies and getting noticed and stuff like that. And he talks about how like that kind of level really doesn't have a profitable market anymore on the like front end because I can't remember if he brought up DVD sales, but streaming of course is a factor, but it really is now. It's either you are going ultra low budget or ultra big budget, and the only way to justify that is they can only get properties that are known to be a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's and now we're seeing that it doesn't matter if it's a huge IP. It could be Joker, and it can completely go to zero. Now that movie is probably not a good example because it had a lot of other things going against it, but it is just funny that nowadays you really do have to be successful in some way, shape, or form in something before any other media that is going to pick you up, especially film and TV and Hollywood in general. They're not going to take your
Yeah.
script, but they are looking at YouTube.
Yeah, and I do think that might be the problem with Hollywood right now. And I think a lot of people, even in Hollywood, agree with that the mid budget movie is not there. And I think you're starting to see people looking to get back towards that. Because like I don't think they're going to be able to abandon the theatrical model. I think that's been proven. The streaming, going direct to streamers does not make the money that they're looking for. So they're gonna have to, it's all gonna have to sort out where does streaming, where is its place in the food chain? When does it get what audiences want? When does it get the content? But I don't think theaters can disappear because I don't think they can make the money that they want to make without a theatrical model. And they need to make things that people want to go see. They need to stop investing, okay, well, this movie's $100 million. They're going to probably have to go back to looking for movie stars and home growing them and creating the romantic comedies and stuff like that again. I mean, do I know this for a fact that it's going to happen? No, I don't know, but I do think that that's a whole market that's missing. You mean you see horror movies doing it? Horror movies have been still doing the same formula, you know? It's still they adjust, but you still see the different budget for horror movies and they're still making money. So they're gonna have to figure something out. I think a lot of it might also have to do how much we pay our movie stars. I
For
mean, some of
sure.
them want every penny,
Yeah.
but some of them double the budget. I don't know.
But I
It's
think the value
weird.
of a star is dwindling. Um, yeah, there's a lot of factors. I was going to bring up if you've ever heard of the concept. I don't remember who coined this term or who discovered this concept, but they call it bundling. Um, I can't remember what it's called actually. It's bundling, unbundling, or something like that. But what we've witnessed is what happens in trends, or I guess like the back and forth of markets and technology is we go from the technology is taking a bunch of different things and bundling them together and making it easy for people. I think a good example people use was like DVDs and albums, and then suddenly bundling it into the iPod or iPad or whatever. Um, but then the next technology is then all of a sudden breaking that apart and then unbundling it, and now everything goes into niches or whatever. And have witnessed in our lifetimes in the past like 30, 40 years is we've basically we've watched everything go from TV channels, and everything was advertising, and then there was individual sales of DVDs and theatrical ticket sales, and then now those all bundled together into streaming platforms. Um, but we're going to be witnessing the next wave, probably over the next 20 years, is the unbundling again. And we're already seeing that in streaming of all the platforms are now just bringing back advertising and essentially becoming cable TV again, to where people are paying in to watch something and still get advertisements. The original thing was you did all this and didn't have to have advertisements like HBO. And now that doesn't even exist anymore. And we're just going to see it go back to what it was. It's good. The technology is going to look different, but the underlying effect of what's happening is just another rebundling or unbundling of what again. Uh,
Yeah, it's like the main difference that's going to come from it is you can still watch anything when you want.
yeah.
That's going to be the main attractor of like modern technology. It's also going to be curious who's going to be the major studio players in the next 10 years, next 20 years. Is it going to be the people that we've seen established like Paramount, Universal, or are those going to get bought away by the new guys like Amazon, who's a massive company, or Netflix? Are these the new big, is that the new kings of the block? I don't know. I teach at LSU, and this is one of the things we talk about, ongoing, like where is it going? What is going to happen? What is the job market going to look like? How are they going to sell their scripts and their movies when they get to, when they get out of school? And one of the things I keep coming back to is it's like I feel today you have to somehow be creating a brand already just coming out of school. You need to be either on Instagram, you need to be on YouTube, you need to be somewhere, TikTok, wherever, just making something that represents you and what you're trying to create and monetize that.
It is insane that essentially nowadays our portfolios of our careers begins as soon as you're online. It's and like it's like your whole life is a true open source to everybody resume as soon as you get a profile, and then that becomes your actual creative, brand, as
Mhm.
you get older, which has a lot of scary factors associated with that, but also a lot of benefits to you can get recognized easier, younger, and so on. I was going to note your students and Like, what do they say? What does the youth think things? Because the youth does sort of determine the future. What is their take on it?
It's interesting because over the course of teaching, one of the things I've noticed is everybody when I first started wanted to be a YouTuber. That was something everyone wanted to do was get on YouTube, create an audience, and do that. Somewhere over the past 4 years, they've realized how much work goes into being a YouTuber podcaster. And
Yeah.
now I don't hear that anymore. Whenever I mention like, my YouTube channel or when I mention like, or is that what you guys want to do? I see them, they make faces like, yeah, I did that and I didn't like it, or it seems like a lot of work. That's kind of what I'm starting to see from students when I mention YouTube. Because I used to say, like, no, fame and success on YouTube was its own thing. I used to say that was separate. YouTube stars were not the same thing as, say, stars in something else. But no, now I don't believe that anymore. No, but it's just what I'm seeing is that they need to be able to create this online identity. I mean, like I said, I one time I thought YouTube just was not a viable way to get into Hollywood. Now I don't believe that at all. I think that might be the best way. I think YouTube now is like when we went to Blockbuster, probably in our days, we used to go find that low budget section. Now I'm starting to think YouTube is where that is at now. You got a low budget horror film that might not quite fit in the big leagues or something. You can put it on YouTube and get more attention that way. I mean, what was that movie that was released just recently? Milk and Cereal? Did you see that?
I saw the I saw the hype for it, but I didn't actually
Mhm.
watch the movie. But
It's
I
a decent
saw
movie.
the promotion, and I think I did see. I like tried to glance through it to get a feel for like what it actually looked like, but I didn't actually watch the full thing.
It's a decent movie. It's a found footage movie. It's made very cheaply, and from my understanding, it ended them in a deal. They got a deal from it. I'm seeing shorts now that have traction in film festivals. It's starting to That's always been a thing where you'd have a good festival run and maybe your short became a feature. But I'm starting to see it more now. It's almost like I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot of movie stars, a lot of content, a lot of movies in general start on YouTube and have a big run from there. And I think
I
comic books are
agree.
still going to have that too. I don't think that's going away. Like where companies are looking at comic books and saying, "Hey, we're going to turn this to a movie." What I'm saying is like I'm thinking YouTube, Instagram, even Kickstarter. Like that's the thing about Kickstarter because like I said, I'm about to do my first one, and it's surprising me to learn that a lot of companies are going to Kickstarter now. They used to tell you fill out the forms and maybe we'll pick you. I don't know if they are now. I think they're looking at Kickstarter and say, "Hey, do you want to be in Scout Comics? Do you want to be with Blood Moon Comics? Hey, you're very successful. What do you think? You want to be in Image Comics?" I think they're going to Kickstarter. They're looking for people who already have an audience who's not having any trouble raising 9, 10, $20,000 for their books, and they're getting them bigger platforms. It's just I think we're entering into the golden age of you do it yourself at the small level, and then somebody will come along and say, "Okay, you're making some money doing this. I'm going to take you, make a lot more money off of you while you make more, but not as much as me, but you'll make more as I pull you up." I
You,
think that's what we're going to see more of.
I 100% agree. The way I described it in the past is like Series A, B, and C investors, in that Kickstarter is your backers are Series A, and they're investing you as a like brand new creator, and then a mid-level publisher then will see that success, um, and say, hey, if they could scale it up to 200 backers, we can probably scale it up to 2,000 and take our, you know, the percentage from that, and and then if that hit makes it, a bigger publisher might come around and try to scale it up to 20 and 200,000.
Hmm.
I think where there's a big lag is just like in film right now, the middle levels actually don't have any real leverage up from the people on YouTube because the main source of income that those mid-level studios and publishers used to have was direct sales to things like DVD or agreements with places like Netflix that also still like relied on rentals back before Netflix was streaming. I talked to plenty other like the people you and I used to look up to whenever we were teenagers with the low budget people that got distribution deals with the people we that Full Moon features and all of the kind of mid and low level, especially of horror of back in the day, especially the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, even Lionsgate to an extent, the
Mhm.
those companies are losing the leverage they used to have, so they are reliant just like on advertisers, just like YouTube. And so if you can get those advertiser revenue as a creator straight the same way YouTube does, it's no different going on YouTube than it is getting put on Tubi or even Netflix nowadays. The only difference is that if some platforms have a very niche audience that is more reliant or that might buy stuff from that studio, I don't know if merchandise or whatever other products that they have, they are willing to pay an upfront fee or an up like a minimum guarantee to filmmakers, or in the case of publishing, they might pay an upfront like we will pay you this amount so that we can get the revenue on the back end as opposed to percentages or whatever. You may get a different deal that may be better for you as a creator, but it might not necessarily be more or get you that much of a bigger audience or at least not like funds because of that mid tier being like eradicated. It's like you're either, bought out by the big dogs that are too big to fail, or you are, it's almost as if the creators are becoming the mid-level studios, not the studios themselves and not the
Mhm.
platforms. Like it's not YouTube or Amazon that have as much power, although their algorithms do. It's the creators on there that do. And that's why you're seeing creators like yourself that you essentially act as your own studio and you're the one that's then hiring creators to create content for your channel. And maybe you're not doing that right now, but that's what you could become is you're the gatekeeper for analog horror. For people that are into that niche as an audience, you're there. You are the platform. Not YouTube is just the means to an end, I guess, or whatever. But you're the one that's actually the gatekeeper, and that's where it's changed to where I think it wasn't. That's what is hasn't been true in the past. That's true nowadays.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I know in the near future, I know next year, I've told several other YouTubers I'm definitely planning on reimagining my channel a little bit. I'm wanting to do less uploads, but bigger production value on those uploads. And I think that's one of the directions that I'm heading toward with my channel. And I want to try some things now that I'm at 100,000. That's always kind of been the goal. Now that I'm at the 100,000, as soon as I get that plaque on that wall back there, that's what I want, that little
Can't
silver.
wait.
And then once I do that, I want to try different things, things that may or may not fail. Like I really want to go out there with it. I have some ideas that are different. We'll see if they're successful or not.
Uh,
But
I'm excited to see what comes out of it. And that's the thing is you now have that buffer to experiment because you've built your base. As long as you don't go backwards or like try something so extreme that you'll actually lose your current, you don't go DII or DEI or whatever it is, like or whatever to where you just like suddenly are like politically motivated or something to where you might lose your
no,
audience. As long as you don't go that direction, I think you can experiment a lot when it comes to actual creative aspects.
no, I'm not gonna do anything political. No, that's not gonna. especially in this environment. Godly, I was worried about like talking to you on election day. I hope he doesn't ask me who am I going to vote for or what do I think's going to happen because I was like, oh well, no, I don't care.
Yeah, no, we're not. I'm not rocking the boat with that one.
I will tell you this: I plan to when the election results come in tonight. I want to make a bold statement and say I will be watching horror movies from 6 o'clock till I pass out. I plan on reading about who the next president is in some article or text message that I get on my phone. I am not following it at all. It's not
Yeah,
that I don't care.
same.
I just find as much as other people care has exhausted me, and I'm just kind of, I did vote, but I'm just kind of, I'm burnt. I'm
Yeah,
burnt
it's
on it.
it's kind of funny that I've been so in my own world that I actually like forgot like that like us scheduling this, it didn't even register to me that it was election day. I had to be reminded by someone else that it was even a time like that. You I didn't know you could vote early or anything or that. So I've never voted before. So like it was like a new thing to me. Like oh okay, yeah, this is a I guess this is a big deal. But yeah, like
You
you, I
never
think
voted
watching
before?
Penguin or something.
You said
I,
you never voted before or early voted?
I've never voted in my life. It's
Oh,
never even
wow.
registered as something to do. I never lived in one place to care about local elections long enough. I never cared about
What?
politics. I have always viewed them sort of as just like one mold that works like in the same machine. I never saw it as something that mattered. Uh, this year I have started to pay a bit more attention, but yeah, it's never been on my radar. But in my world now, I guess I can use that to like go into like creatively where I'm at. I'll be done in like 20 minutes.
It's so funny. My little girl's right there too.
I promise. I'm bored right now. I know. I love you.
My little girl just walked in to give me something at the
I,
same time.
I promised her 20 minutes. I'll give my spiel on my updates, and then we'll enjoy our horror movies and as the world falls apart or becomes a new frontier to new hope. Who
Who
knows?
it's like who it's whatever way it goes, 50%'s happy, 50%'s not. That's kind of the given state
Always
of
been like yeah. Whenever I was a kid, it was the big thing was Bush Gore. I remember being in school and like the um anyway, we could politics is a set aside. In the creative world, it was like so it was like me, the what prompted me to even be on YouTube and be here talking to you was the first like real heavy duty book I wrote with my writing partner Aaron Crow that we spent like our good hard-earned money on. It was one of our first like real full-blown projects that we invested time and money in. Became a hit, and it was called It Eats What Feeds It. And then launched our careers in comics. It got me into making YouTube videos. It was under a 5-year contract, and that contract, the rights revert back to me this month.
oh well.
So knowing that, I have been in preparation. Now, to remind people, that book sold out every time it was printed. It sold out every single issue twice. The first issue sold out 4 times. It is now, and then once I did not extend the contract, they were no longer printing more. And so it's essentially like all that stuff is sold, 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 a hit in its own modest right, small level, but still a hit. And now that I get the rights back, I've been trying to figure out how I want to extend that series. We had a prequel written, um, a, a lot of other things going on. Um, but we didn't extend that series because I had another series with the original artist called Liquid Kill. Liquid Kill also was a modest hit. It sold a lot more copies than It Eats did. It was on a bigger publisher known as Massive Publishing. Um, but a lot of the sales were to collectors, not as much as readers. So I had a lot more sales, but not as much like hardcore fans. but it was enough to sustain the series to where we went from 6 issues to 10 and then potentially 15. So this year has been a crossroads where we were waiting to see what were going to be the final numbers for the trade pre-orders and the pre-orders for the second volume, enough for me to continue production on that series. Because if I wasn't going to continue production on that series, I was going to pull back that artist and have them start production on whatever avenue we wanted to take with the It Eats What Feeds It universe, which is separate from Liquid Kills. And we just found out this month a bunch of weird things happened. It was basically like we got a lot of sales, but my publisher delayed the release of the trade, and then they also misprinted the first issue of volume two. Um, and that caused sort of a ruckus in our own creative sphere because it delayed things to where all of our decisions are essentially cut short, and I had no time or basically when it comes to actually like earning back revenue, if when you're running this kind of business, you basically can't start a new project until you earn back revenue on the first. And you have to figure out how you're going to divvy out those funds. And basically, we're now deciding basically like we're going to probably shut down production and not continue volume three of Liquid Kill, but also I'm probably not going to begin production on uh, a prequel to It Eats What Feeds It soon enough to make it matter. So I decided to re-release It Eats What Feeds It as a black and white manga format. And at
Ah,
the same time, Crow and I have also had been in production with another manga format comic series that's going to be like a 100-page graphic novel with a manga artist, that's in the same genre. It's like a paranormal horror romance, just like It Eats What Feeds It. It's called Our Love Unrest. And much like you're trying to do, I was instead of going with a publisher or a like small press or mid-level publisher, we were going to try to use our sustained audience that we've had. I have proof of concept. I know I can sell these books at conventions to my own audience, online, crowdfund it, whatever. So I decided to basically combine those. And instead of just doing like one Kickstarter for both, I was actually going to take on other projects that are in a manga format and start my own publisher called Sako Press. And I had other people, creators like you that wanted to get involved, retailers, local comic shops, bookstores, and all kinds of people that thought it was a good idea. And I basically went for it. And when I say went for it, I haven't produced anything yet, but I kind of posted a website, posted a press release, and that's where I'm at now, to where it's basically like I have a future set for my own projects, and depending on how well that does, I'm going to try to possibly publish other authors in this format to where it's like the smaller size, black and white. It's cheaper on production, it's cheaper on printing. And I'm going to see if I can use that angle to sort of establish a further niche, not just into my own products, but as a publishing label. Um, and I was going to go that route as opposed to the what we've done for the past 4 years, which is basically write properties, get as big of a publisher as we can, try to earn back as much revenue as we can. Sort of the fiascos that we've had with the um, uh, sales and weird things that have happened. Other thing to happen with Liquid Kill was it, or same with like It Eats What Feeds It, is you get sort of things up in the air as far as action figures, merchandise, video games, licensing options. I had foreign deals that got picked up in France. There, and it's published out there under another publishing company. And like these kind of things have these long delays. And if I would have had this all on my own, I would have been able to produce these products without any red tape. I could have made my own merchandise. I could have, gone directly to other foreign agents and things like that, used managers that are separate from the publishers that I'm attached to, and just done some other things that we're going to try to do it basically on our own. What you and I were just talking about earlier, where it's like we can sort of be that mid-level studio or low level that can, actually move the needle greater for us as, the creators whenever we own all the rights. And it's not just about owning the rights, it's actually about having the control and the timing to actually do everything on your own, as opposed to waiting on third parties to prove that they have the audience or um, funds or whatever to actually produce what you're trying to do. Even if it's as simple as a full body pillow or something like that. I was, held back to where I couldn't go to conventions and really like guarantee that without having to, pay somebody that a middleman, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah. I hope it works out for you. I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, I think I think we might start seeing a lot of things in that format. Didn't DC just recently start releasing books in that format, smaller print
Yeah,
size?
that's the thing is I there's a lot of there are a lot of publishers that are also publishing in a manga format, like DC, or they're but what they're actually doing is taking that IP and almost truly like releasing it in the Japanese language, reading in the Japanese like right to left instead of left to right, and they're almost targeting a Japanese audience, even if that Japanese audience is in the United States, where I am not necessarily going after the Japanese market or the people that are looking specifically for Japanese manga. It's almost just more like the formatting of American comics, including the art style and reading left or right, but in the size, like the tankobon size. And that's a very much a uh that is an expense reasoning and a differentiation reasoning to do that, not so much to be like I'm taking IP and releasing it as a manga. Um,
You know,
you
you're
can
not the only one
believe,
I've heard saying doing that either. I know other publishers that are looking at it. You're not the only one. I know I've talked to several publishers and several people who are looking to shrink their books because of what you're saying, the
that's good.
cost.
It makes sense. It's familiar. It fits better on shelves. There's a lot of reasons to do it, and that's the hardest part. You and I, and as we were talking about offline, the other day, what happens is printing costs can be so expensive for low print runs, even for publishers, that when it actually has to go to retail, by the time the retail shops take their cut, the bookstores take their cut, the distribution and shipping take their cut, they have to sell those comics for way more expensive than the customer is actually willing to pay. If they're
Mhm.
used to paying Viz, Media, or Marvel or DC no more than $20 for a graphic novel, they get freaked out if they see a graphic novel that's 30 or $40 online, not including shipping or even including shipping. And the only way to offset that for indie creators like you and I is we have to actually make printing cheaper. And one of the ways to do that is not having it in color, not having it on that gloss paper, making it in a smaller size. But you don't want to do it purely like trash. You don't want it on newsprint. You don't want it super small. You don't want it as like a zine. You want it as something like a tankobon manga format. Like that's what people are used to as well. And yeah, and there's other people that are looking into it, and so I'm not completely new in that sense. Um, but I think I am one of the first that's like truly, and that's the thing is like I'm not really even live yet. It's sort of a soft launch. It's just it's almost like if my own creator projects can work out, I'll try to expand it. But it's just because you have, as you know, you have so much behind the scenes of things in production, you kind of want to experiment and like put it out there and say this is what we're working on. It's just like marketing a movie. You have a trailer that's out there before the movie is out. You might not, or just like nowadays, Squid Game's coming out before Squid Game is done. The American, the people that are doing the voiceovers in English haven't even done their work yet, but it's already out there for people to see as if it exists. You got to get the ball rolling. You got to get it in front of people's eyeballs before the product is live, and that's what I'm doing. Is I'm announcing it. I'm talking about it, making little promotional things for it. It's not necessarily advertisements that I'm paying for, but trying to organically just get a feel from the general zeitgeist of what people are thinking of this. And it is affecting the way that I probably will do business whenever we actually do go live.
Yeah, you're workshopping it.
There you go.
You're workshopping it. And that's why I'm thinking about with when I do my Kickstarter, why I'm going to offer both my books that I've done. I'm going to offer one graphic novel, traditional size, but I'm going to make it a flip book where you get both stories in one book. So if it is more, at least they're getting two books out of it, you know? Because
That's
like I think that's
interesting.
what's that?
That's interesting.
Because like I really think that's the way to go. Now, and most people offer only one story. And I've seen on Kickstarter the big thing is 40 pages, 48 pages. That's kind of the given amount that I've seen. Well, when I do it, I want it to be like, 300 pages. I
Yeah.
just, I mean, because like one graphic novel is like 120 pages, something like that. A little bit more than that,
Yeah,
22 times.
yeah.
So, I want to put two of those together, make one project out of it. So it's something that's at least a little different than what the direct market's getting. And at least they get their money's worth out of it.
Yeah, I totally get that, and same. I hope that it works out for you as well. I also have not crowdfunded anything. I at least not done anything like really put all my effort into it. I attempted to try to crowdfund the like post production for my Tupac film, but as soon as like I went live with it, we essentially did find funding, and simultaneously I just found out my audience did not care about Hindi feature films. They wanted my comics. And so I basically just backed out of it before it ever finished. But it's just like anything else. It's just like growing a YouTube channel. And I don't see why, if you can have true tangible success like you've done on YouTube, building an audience, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do the same thing in the same way that you're trying to do now with your double feature book. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the thing we're going to have to start doing. Because, like, if you're going to pay more than $20 for this thing, why am I paying more than $20 for something I've paid, that I can get from another company for 20 bucks? Why am I paying 30 for that? Well, I mean, if you say two stories, well, okay, two stories and you're giving me a deal. That sounds better. I mean,
Mhm.
every money's hard for everybody. You got to think about your consumer. You can't just say, "Hey, I made this great book. You should be willing to pay 50 bucks for it." It just doesn't work that way. I mean,
I get it. Yeah.
everybody's got to
That's the whole
earn
hard part.
money. What's that?
That's the whole hard, that's like the whole rock and a hard place that we have to solve is how
Yeah.
do you make it affordable for the consumer while still making it profitable for the creator? It's almost impossible when you're dealing with even decent audience size, but definitely whenever you're doing it low. It's like it only makes sense when you're selling ridiculous amounts of copies. And yeah, I've talked about this ad nauseum on all my other
Yeah.
videos. But any closing remarks before I let you go, since the babies are crying for us?
No, no worries. The Demon Inside's currently with Blood Moon. Hopefully, my Kickstarter goes live sometime in December, and I'm working on Children of the House. Hopefully, that might land at a big publisher. If not, I will be kickstarting that as well.
And I did want to also publicly announce. Yeah, I read the Demon Inside. I didn't read the full thing, but I looked through that once again. Great job, Edie, which you had. Well done on that. Like for those who did not get that, can they still get that from Blood Moon or directly from you at all?
They can still get it on. They can still get it, but it's the trade is on their website. Yeah, I need to get you to. I can't wait to see what you think about The Demon Inside because it looks like a traditional book until you get to the very end. It takes a big swing. I'm curious how people are going to take the Exorcist meets It's a Wonderful Life. When you
Yeah,
read it, you'll understand. You're going to be like, damn, that's exactly what this is.
yeah, and I love that kind of a story. Um, all right, yeah. Once again to everybody, Paul Catalanotto. What is this? Number four? Number
I
five
don't
time we've
know.
had you on?
4 or 5. I think number 4.
Check out Vintage Eight on YouTube. 100,000 subscribers. Lots of content. Um, found footage and analog horror. Check out Edie on Blood Moon and The Demon Inside and anything else you have yet to come.